All right, Bassam, we are live here on
Fantastic.
Head to Head on, I'm sitting here in Florida at 80 something degrees, and I see you're sitting there with all that lovely snow in the background. It's like
It,
two diverging worlds here.
it was single digits this morning, and my bald head can barely stand it. And now we're almost to 20 degrees, so that's great. I don't know if you can
It's a
quite count. Can
heat.
you make out the snow behind me? I can't tell.
Yes,
All right.
we can. And as we go back to a larger screen, we'll be able to see it more. I see people coming in here.
All
Everybody
right.
had to get their coffee on the West Coast and the East Coast, where they're in line for lunch. So, all
This is
right.
fantastic. I love this format. I love the live format. This is going to be great.
It's awesome. So everybody will participants, tell us where you are. Tell us how the weather is in your neck of the woods. Sound like Al Roker, but yeah, obviously we're covering it all today. So be sure you chime in on the chat today. We will have the chat up and running. No Q&A. I think I have it turned off, but that's just way too much for me to manage. So make life easy on me. Please feel free to reach out to us in the chat. And Bassam, we have so much to cover that I'm going to go ahead and kick things off, and people will join us as they join us. And we had a huge number of people registered today, so I'm excited about that. And for those who are joining us live, you get to participate in this. I always say that Head to Head is not a podcast and it's not a webinar. It's a conversation, and you get to be a part of it when you join us live. And then, of course, for those that we are recording, so we will send this out so so those that aren't able to join us today can hear it, but you don't get to take part in the conversation. So that's kind of a sad thing. Oh, we've already got the chat going. Oh,
I
Sam's
welcome. Yeah,
you're getting everybody
I'm
kicked off here.
excited.
Good. Let's go. Let's go. We are talking about making artificial intelligence sexy and personal. So I figured who better than to have Sam.
Oh man.
And a little bit about me, just so we can get those intros out of the way for you guys and get into the meat of the program. I am Kimberly Mackey, and my company is New Home Solutions Consulting. There is so much confusion around what I do, so let me try to clarify this for you. Because I train and speak, people think that's what I do, and yes, I do that. But primarily, I am an immersion management consultant. So I go into builders and I help them to make sure that their systems are in place, that they are having profitable sales, and that they have the back end to support those sales so they can continue to build them profitably, and sales doesn't become the engine that runs the company off the tracks. So it should be the engine that drives the train. So if I can help you with any of that, help you to be more profitable, set your absorption rates, work with your sales team, work with your management team, work with your operations. I do it all. So give me a shout. And then, Bassam, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us all about, well, you're going to have an hour to tell us all about artificial intelligence, but tell us about
Uh,
the mission for Atlas RTX.
Well, thank you so much, Kimberly. I'm sincerely excited and honored to be here. It's really fun to do it in this format. I'm Bassam Salem. I am CEO of Atlas RTX, and I loved Kimberly's comment that a lot of people are not sure what I do. To your comment, well, a lot of people aren't exactly sure what real-time experience is, and I'm excited to cover that today. But we work with across many industries. However, we have a huge concentration in production home building and a lot of experience in production home building. And we cover sales, marketing, and service experiences powered by artificial intelligence. And hopefully this will make a little bit more sense further in the conversation. I'm originally from Cairo, Egypt. So if you're wondering why my name looks like that and why I look like this, but I'm sitting in beautiful, if incredibly cold, Park City, Utah, where we went from single digits to we're almost 20 degrees right now. So I'm surviving winter, and I actually love it this way. But thanks again, Kimberly, for having me.
And people should not jump off of this right now and go book their tickets after seeing Park City right there.
Yeah.
I know they're ready to go get the ski trip in. Quick little promo. I've cut head to head down, so I'm only doing it about 6 times this year. And the next program is going to be on May 10th. This one is backed by popular demand. This is one of the most popular that we've ever had. And I happen to enjoy it immensely because it's with my dear friend Leah Turner, who everybody knows that that I travel with. I love her. We go head to head on a regular basis, so it's like a Tuesday for us. But we're going to do take two, the top 10 new mistakes salespeople make. That she with Melinda Brody and company just has their benchmark study in, and we have validation, guys. We got the numbers to show what is going wrong out there in our industry, and maybe we're going to cover a little bit of that today, Sam. So let's without further ado, let's dive into this and look into the future. So let's talk about, what is artificial intelligence, and what does our world start to look like maybe 10 years from now? What do you think?
Kimberly, I love these topics. I love sort of looking forward and projecting in tech, especially. I'm a huge fan of tech. I'm a technologist at heart. And I really think that there are 3 thematic trends that we're already in the midst of now, but they're accelerating and will be accelerating over the next decade or so. The first is AI and robotic automation. The second is augmentation and virtualization. And the third is decentralization and disintermediation. I wanted to introduce you to the fancy buzzwords first.
Those are really big words.
They're big words and they sound impressive, but they actually mean sort of simplistic concepts that I think we can quickly define. So the one that I'm sincerely passionate about, because it's the space I have studied for a long time and live in, is AI and robotic automation. And I think this one's intuitive to us when I talk about robots in factories helping us as humans. And that's been a trend we've been seeing for decades now, 3-4 decades, although it's certainly accelerated. But it's also digital assistants on our phones and in our cars and sometimes in our appliances that we can quickly ask, what's the capital of China? What's the temperature in Dallas today, right? We can have these automated experiences where I can just ask a digital assistant to help me or even book an appointment for me. To self-driving cars, I think we have all seen the capabilities and the enhancements that are happening. Robotics, automation, and artificial intelligence is all around us, and I think it's hard to presume that the themes there don't accelerate over the next decade.
Well, I saw on the Olympics that they were showing the behind the scenes experience, and they had robots waiting tables and robot bartenders. And then now I've seen several restaurants that have actually adopted this trend here in the US. And I guess because they couldn't get staff, it was, why they kind of went in that direction.
Well, do you remember, and I hate to mention a brand name, but when the Roomba first came out, and we all thought it was sort of a cute little gimmick, but now look at these devices. They're everywhere, and they're cutting lawns and mowing lawns and cleaning inside homes. It really is amazing. I'm waiting for a robotic snowblower or snow thrower that can just clear a driveway. I'm sure someone's working on it, but
I'm sure they are. Yeah, that's not an issue for me, but here in Florida. But
there are 2 other themes I just love to mention, even though we may not dig into them completely here, because they do certainly impact home building, and that is augmentation and virtualization. I think, I'll simplistically, for those of us who have kids, refer to it as, how our kids sit there in front of the computer with their headphones on and they're talking to the screen? That is virtualization. They are existing in a different virtual reality, whether it's a video game or a social network or what's now being popularized as a type of metaverse. There isn't the metaverse, there are just metaverses. There are different environments that they can embed themselves. Sad or not, that is happening. We are spending a lot of time in these virtual realities, and home builders are seeing this as, I can now experience a home on the website in virtual reality. That's virtualization. I no longer have to go visit the physical home to the same degree. Now, I personally still would love to see the home, but Many folks are comfortable virtually. Certainly younger generations are completely comfortable to be exclusive with virtualization. Augmentation is a reference to augmented reality, where we're able to sort of, I think that I'm a car guy, so I'll keep mentioning car examples, where you're in the car and we augment the windscreen, or the windscreen with windshield, sorry, with directions that are overlaid, that are augmenting the road. So it will literally tell me, go right here, and it's drawing an arrow right on the road. It's augmenting.
Oh, no, that's cool.
Isn't that cool?
My
So,
car doesn't do that, so I still have to rely on Google Maps.
and mind you, mine doesn't, but they're starting to. So augmentation and virtualization are certainly themes that are materializing to all of us as consumers. We're living this, and think about how far we've come in a decade. Imagine the next decade. The final one, which I think is really intriguing, and another, I'm again a fan of decentralization and financial systems. And I think the themes of decentralization and disintermediation are also worthy of us just briefly mentioning here, even though we won't dig into them. I think if everything in our world is quickly getting disintermediated. We're very much more peer-to-peer than we used to be. We look to our friends and neighbors, as we all know, over social networks for referrals and recommendations. There are digital currencies that now are trying to disintermediate our financial systems and allowing me to transfer money to someone else without having to go to a central bank or a central banking system. Disintermediation, that was decentralization. Disintermediation is about taking the middleman, so to speak, outside of the equation. So retail, I think, is the best example of that, where you see brands now going direct to consumer. So a brand will try to sell on their website or through a channel that they own and manage. Even Apple has become a retailer. Right. Certainly, I think you'll see that more and more, including even in automotive. Going back to my car reference, Tesla is really disrupting that world. They're disintermediating, right. And they're saying, I'm not going to go to a dealer. Just come to me and you buy the car, and it's direct. It's peer-to-peer, so to speak, without a middleman. So these themes are really, really, it's just incredible to me how quickly they're accelerating. And over the next decade, I believe they will continue to, and the world will be unrecognizable in 10 years because of these three trends.
Now you're going to have our salespeople hanging up the phone. Now they're getting off of the call here today, because they're like, wait a minute, he's promoting that we're going to get rid of salespeople, and that's really not what we're talking about at all. So I want to put your mind at ease. There's a way that you embrace this technology, and you allow it to help you work smarter, just like you have in your personal lives. It's made your personal lives arguably better. In most cases better. I don't know.
Sincerely, that is, it's not just a marketing gimmick or a comfort gimmick to say what you just said, Kimberly. Sincerely, history has shown us that humans prevail. We just get rid of what we don't want to do, or what we can't do, or what we shouldn't do. That's basically what we're trying to do here. So I love driving a car, so I don't really need self-driving, but a lot of people would prefer not to, and have the car be able to have artificial intelligence and see the road and drive itself. Some people were afraid of riding an elevator without a human in it who's the controller. That wasn't that long ago when that was very normal.
Yeah.
I was alive. You may not have been, but I was alive when that used to be very normal. The idea is, what do we want to do? What do we want to use our time in doing? And where are we adding value to a customer experience, whether it's a sales process, marketing process, or even a service process? Do I really want to do the low-level tasks, or do I want to automate that away and let a machine take care of that for me?
And I think, some improvements we can think of, like the answering services for calling a company. You call your bank, right? And you get press 1, those were, I would argue that we went backwards in the customer experience for that. So I think if we take not only what we don't necessarily want to do or don't do well and automate it, we also have to think about it from that customer experience of what will enhance things for the customer and
I
how do they
love
get the information they need, like when they want it.
I love that you bring this up. And I know, Kimberly, you talk very frequently, even in our prep session, you're very, very customer centric, consumer first, customer first. And I actually think that that is at the heart of the premise you just described, where you said interactive voice response, IVRs from the 80s, we all hated them. We're like 000, right? We would want to get to it.
I still do it today.
Exactly. I think there's a fundamental difference between what was happening 15, 20 years ago and what's happening today. So 15 or 20 years ago, automation was led by companies trying to cut costs. So I don't want to have to talk to the consumer. I don't want to have to talk to my customer. Unless you're a white glove customer who's paying me a ton of money, I'm not going to give you a human. Everybody else is forced to this low end, very simplistic, almost deflective experience where we're trying to make it impossible for you to talk to us. That used to be what we experienced as consumers. And just like you said, that's not consumer first. That's company financials first. Don't you care about me as a consumer? Today, it's exactly the opposite. Today, we as consumers are saying, let us help ourselves. When I buy something from Amazon and I never talk to a human, I'm actually not looking to talk to a human. I just want to buy my freaking thing from Amazon. Now, that's not a house. It's a very different kind of thing. But we buy some pretty expensive things on Amazon, never talking to a human. We handle the return, never talking to a human. And we don't want to. Just make it simple for me. Make it easy for me to return it. Make it easy for me to buy the Tesla. It may not show up for a year because of supply chain shortages, but it's really, really easy and transparent and allows me to help myself as a consumer to buy a Tesla or order an Uber. I don't need to call for a taxi. I can order an Uber. I feel powerful as a consumer. And in 2020 and 2022, it's the consumer who's saying, please make it easy for me. Make it so I can help myself at 2 a.m. if I'm sleepless and I want to browse your store, your houses, and I want to reserve one or ask questions about one or ask if you have a single level floor plan. Make it easy for me. And I love that that the driver is really the customer at this point, and it can actually be a luxurious experience that is sort of self-service enabled, shall we say.
Yeah, and if you think about that Amazon experience, I mean, you get to look at the different colors. If I want to, if I want to buy something, how many colors does it come in? What you choose the size that you can, and you see pictures of it. You see videos and I would say Amazon's really behind on even the video part of it. But I mean, they do incorporate that in. Carol Morgan and I just did for our sales and marketing power hour that we did a week or so ago. We talked about VR and virtual reality and how, having those the floor plans and allowing people to choose colors and change out cabinets, and the gaming technology has really made a world of difference in that digital experience that seems very real to people now. They're used to it. They like it. In Wayfair, I can take a picture of something or hold up my phone to my room and see exactly how that item is going to look right there in my room. That's what people want. That's what they expect.
Exactly. And that's what's wonderful. What I love about what we're describing here is you're describing your own preferences, Kimberly. Like you want to be empowered. You want to feel like you're in control of choosing and browsing and not having to be dependent on someone else. And with all due respect, that's our generation where we're comfortable doing what we're doing. We're comfortable talking in person. Imagine a 28-year-old or an
younger
18-year-old or younger and what their lives look like and the limited experiences they have in the real world versus the virtual world. And I don't say that I say this judgingly. It's just different. It's a different kind of experience, and one where sort of this notion of give me arm's length experiences. I may not want to even be face to face. I may not be comfortable negotiating face to face. I may want to negotiate. No one's negotiating anything on a house these days, but I may want to negotiate or ask questions, and I may want to do it arm's length over text at 8:30 in the evening when I'm talking to my significant other, and I can feel empowered to think about my messages before I send them. Whereas going and facing a professional salesperson in person in a model home or sales center may be a lot more intimidating to a 28-year-old on average than I think we appreciate.
And we can allow the buyer to come into that, what I call the customer experience funnel, which now looks like a F4 twister. It's like it's doing this now. We used to have a linear funnel. It's not linear anymore. It's all over the place. And people want to come into it where they want to come. Let them enter where they want to.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that concept, and it's completely true. It's let them enter when they want to, how they want to, and when at the time of day that they want to, which is also crazy. Business hours were completely normal 10 years ago. Now it's really,
even
really
3
tough.
years ago.
Even 3, that's true.
That was so 2019.
That was so pre-COVID. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I mean, we as consumers struggle with business hours. We struggle with that because I don't want to know that I can only order an Uber between the hours of A and B. I don't want to order an Airbnb or reserve an Airbnb only if I'm in my waking hours. And candidly, a lot of consumers now want to be able to see homes when they want to. I may want to see it after work. That might be the only time that my significant other and I, or my family and I, or my kids who are at school, or whatever may want to come. And that's putting a lot of pressure on all of us as businesses. It's a lot of pressure to deal with that sort of consumer expectation. The bar to delight a customer has gone from here to here. How do we bridge that gap? We expect a lot from everything.
When we weren't doing a great job of it to begin with. I think it's
Fair point.
because we were saying, here's when you can find us. And for a lot of builders, I mean, they don't even have full-time staff in their models. Back in the day, I had a community where I was getting so much after hours business. I actually hired somebody to be there after my salespeople. So, and it was amazing how many sales we got. It was just, before dark, it was like in the summertime, be here between 6 and 8.
Yeah.
And it was, and I wrote an article back in 2010. I'm dating myself.
Wow.
In 2010, I wrote an article. It's 7 p.m. Do you know where your customers are? Because they were like, oh, well, we close at 5, but your customers don't get off work until 5. How are they supposed to see you if you're closing at 5 o'clock?
So clever. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that was back then. Now expectations from the buyers, because of the opportunities that we have online, whether it's a virtual reality, whether it's a virtual tour that's truly, a video tour, or just even still photos that are put together as a video so that people can take a tour and look at it mapped next to the home site, your Matterports, all of those. There's an expectation. And we saw a huge surge in March and April of 2020, where builders went, whoa, wait a minute, I gotta get busy with my digital platform here. Well, we can't rest on our laurels now that the world is reopening and going back to whatever normal was, because the next thing's going to be here. If it isn't already, the next thing's going to be here.
You're absolutely right. And consumer sentiment, our sentiment has already changed. Our preferences have already changed.
Right.
We're all now used to things that we may have been a little less comfortable with before. A common example that I bring up all the time is how many of us, when we first saw a QR code, thought really cool, but then we thought it's going to die. I don't know if anyone's using it. And now all of us, suddenly it's across the whole board now.
It's on TV now. They were like, oh, it's only for print. You can only use QR codes for print. You can't use it for digital. And we're like, why can't you use it for digital?
We've been trained with COVID and menus to all know how to trigger a QR code. An 85-year-old is just as comfortable doing it as a 45 or a 25-year-old. And that's kind of crazy that just that quickly we've been changed, and we know what it means. As soon as we see one, we know what we can do with it.
Right.
It's crazy.
And our phones have gotten so much smarter about it. You used to have an app,
True.
but now you don't need an app. Just hold up your camera.
Just, it's so cool. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk about the now. So, the future, we know it's happening, and people want to say, oh, this is 10 years in the future. No, it's now. Really, all this stuff is happening. It's only going to get better. But let's talk about like what are savvy builders doing right now with this technology, and how are they integrating it from the customer experience standpoint?
Fantastic. And I'd love to tackle this because I have to admit it's a very different story now than it was 2 or 3 years ago, and certainly 6 years ago when we first started talking to home builders. And I'll tell you, there were in the 90s, the last businesses to accept email for service and sales. In the 2000s, there were the last companies to have a website, right? In the 2010s,
yeah.
there were the last people to endorse the notion of social networks and social media and texting, but everybody was switching channels. And now in the 2020s, I sincerely believe that there will be the last business to endorse the notion of an artificial intelligence that can help my team meet these expectations. So let's make it real. What are we talking about when we say AI? Because there's so much. Artificial intelligence is such a broad computer science term. It could be from computer vision to natural language understanding to robotics to speech synthesis. It's a huge world, but let's just sort of zoom it down and say, can I get a digital machine, a digital workforce, a digital colleague or assistant, and that's why we call them digital assistants, that does 3 things. Number 1, delights customers by delivering on their real-time experience expectations, all these expectations you and I have been talking about for the last 10 minutes, the 24/7 and immediate and personalized to me and all of those things. How are you supposed to do that with an unlimited team? Well, can we have a digital workforce that does that? Number 1. Number 2, alleviates the pressure and monotony on our team, because as clients of ours have endorsed it and realized, oh my gosh, it removes the stuff I don't want to do, the monotonous stuff, or the stuff I can't do because I can't be up at 2 in the morning. So can you cover a few things? You're obviously not going to be me, but can you do something at 2 in the morning so I don't have to? Or can you do something at 2 in the afternoon so I don't have to feel glued to a 6-second response to a web chat request, which is impossible to hit? So, and then number 3, can we increase our efficiency? And this is for the company's benefit. Sort of, excuse me, can we as a company augment our staff with these sort of, let's call them low cost entry-level virtual assistants, digital assistants who are helping us. So I don't have to hire the best of the best, and I can now hire the best of the best for the best of the best tasks and keep the basic tasks for these machines. So it becomes this win-win-win notion of the customer wins because they get the real-time experience that we all want. The team, the human member, wins because they get rid of crap they don't want to do and can do it more effectively and efficiently. And the company wins because it doesn't have to, in order to meet those crazy expectations, it doesn't have to hire 20 people to do the same thing.
Which you cannot find right now if you try.
Which you cannot find right now.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you can actually, and this I will be blunt about, to show you that I'm not afraid of tackling the topic of our roles as humans. Yes, it does mean that we can't be lazy and not knowledgeable and not proactive and not willing to engage and rude. If we are that, we shouldn't be there and let a machine do that. But it does mean that the value of that awesome, again, whether it's a salesperson, marketing person, or service person, and this is really across the board. I know our focus here are sales folks, but it really does cover everybody. An awesome person is still an awesome person, and a machine is not going to replace an awesome person. It never has,
Absolutely.
and it never will. But now the company can say, I've got my 3 or 6 or 12 awesome people, and maybe I'm struggling to hire more awesome people, and I really don't want to lower the bar and hire those who would lower my average for this team. I can augment that great team, make them more effective, more efficient, and happier with their jobs, because something is taking away that monotony. So I hope you see, again, I'm willing to talk about this very bluntly, because I think it's the truth. It's what's happening out there.
Well, I think a great example, as I talk to online sales counselors and with the sales teams that I'm working with, they tell me that a lot of the time the calls that are coming into them and they're answering are, they're a vendor trying to get hired. Somebody needs directions. Like, there's basic stuff that has nothing to do with trying to schedule an appointment to get somebody in front of a salesperson or into a community. Those to me are perfect things that can be handled by either a chatbot or some form of digital assistant that you
Automation.
talk about. Yeah.
Exactly. You're exactly right. And those are exactly the kinds of tasks that we're talking about, Kimberly. And you ask, what do, again, specifically home builders find? It's exactly that. It's not something to be scared of. It's something to take away the low value and the redundant, and allow me to focus my time on the high value. And then I can delight the customer that way, because I'm now giving them automation when they want it and need it, but I'm giving them the personal touch when they want it and need it. Now I can afford to, because I'm not wasting my time on the frivolous questions, or I'm talking to the wrong folks because they're not prospects. They're someone getting information for something else that it's coming to me, and now I'm not helping my customer. So it sort of declogs. And I think as we all get better at what we do, we will just get super, super efficient at focusing the right tasks to the human and the right tasks to automation.
Well, and I hear people who, they want to add staff. They're going to add a receptionist. They're going to add an online sales counselor because of the volume of calls. So to me, throwing bodies at problems is not a good solution. I think you have to really think through, you have to think through, what positions do I really need and what is their role, very thoroughly. And then what support does that person in that seat need to have in order to do a great job? Now, it may very well be that you are getting a volume of calls that you do need to add another OSC, but that's not enough information to make that determination. It's, what kind of calls are you getting?
You're absolutely right, and you're actually hitting on another point that I'd love to address here, and that is the difference in sophistication between digital assistants that you need at various points can vary substantially. So again, taking a very customer-centric approach, this is how I would do it if I were a home builder. I would map my journey. What does my customer experience look like?
Absolutely.
And what does my customer want at the discovery stage, when they're just learning about us, to the decision stage when they're trying to choose us over someone else, to the delight stage where we're trying to sort of make them happy with what will be a pretty protracted build and delivery process in most cases, and move-in process. There are some parts of that process where automation makes sense. And there are some parts of that process where human makes sense. We all
Yes.
know, if there's a charged situation and I'm an upset customer, I want help. Let's not even try to throw automation at that. And in fact, the automation there should be very savvy to be human backed, and the human is ready. So even when we map these experiences with clients, we will say, this is a stage where we don't want too much automation. You don't want this digital assistant, this bot, to try to deflect away from your customer. That will only hurt their experience. It's not a good way to go. So you want to invest your human capital here, put them there. 2 a.m, someone just browsing on your website, it's going to be hard. Yes, can we hire people and ask them to work at 2 a.m? Do we want them to be talking to every prospective person who may not be a real buyer, who may be someone, a trade, to your point, wondering if they would work with them, right? They're all of this enormous funnel. And when we introduce digital assistants, I will tell you the one thing that happens is the number of conversations balloons, because there are so many more people now who are able to engage your brand.
Yes.
And you're not having to pay for that with the pain of a human being who has to deal with it. So that sort of mapping the journey and figuring out where automation makes sense and where humanization makes sense is really important.
We promised sexy. So we've talked about the
no.
after hours and backup support, but there are some things that are being done with this that I just think are super sexy. One of them is through like surveying or outreach to people. You enter the who maybe come in, and as they leave and they're leaving the community, all of a sudden the AI starts to engage with them. And how was your experience? You know, giving them avenues to answer further questions. And
you know, I'm not going to go as far as calling anything we do or I do as sexy, but I appreciate the characterization.
That's pretty sexy.
Although tech in general to me is certainly sexy. The use case you mentioned is actually the one that really galvanized our relationship and our experience in home building, because it wasn't long ago before this crazy market that we're currently in, and we all know is transient. Markets like this can't exist for the long term in any industry. The word was follow-up. Do you remember, Kimberly, when everybody was talking about
when we had to follow up with people?
Oh, yes. Follow up with people. And follow-up was both hard and something salespeople didn't want to do. That's the intellectually honest comment.
That's
They didn't want to do it. Why do I want to? It's tough to be pushy. It's tough to call someone 14 times over a 2-week period and leave 6 voicemails. I don't want to be the annoying salesperson. And candidly, the consumer on the other end, it's like, my gosh, I don't want to register if I'm just going to get bombarded with unsolicited phone calls, and I'm going to have to keep sending them to my voicemail, right? I don't, and then I have to somehow text them and say, hey, can you please leave me alone? I'm not interested. So I think, what if you could have a digital assistant, and I will call this sexy thanks to you, that can do that follow-up for you, and after an experience, after a model home visit, can be really respectful and reach out to the prospective buyer and say, hey, are you interested? How was it? Would you like to learn more? And it's wonderful because if you're not interested, it can ask you, hey, can you give me some feedback on what about the home or the community didn't appeal to you? And in some cases, they might say, hey, I was just here for the weekend. I was just going through open houses. Fantastic. We don't need to bother you anymore. They might say, I'm not a buyer because I really wanted to be in this school district. Well, guess what? We have a community in that school district. I can help you.
Right.
So what it does is, having a digital assistant that takes that task away is sexy, because it makes it so the salesperson doesn't have to do a part of their job that is painful, difficult, and high volume. And it's sexy because it's respectful of the consumer, who then feels like, hey, I can just say, I'm not interested and move on. But it also means that if I am interested, it's now given me this direct channel to the brand, to the builder, where I can reach out anytime and talk to the right person there, maybe an assistant if it's at various stages in the journey, as we said, but it could be a human. And now I've got this unified place I can always go to talk to the builder. So that
was important. That, you know, when we talked about this back in 2018, when
Yes.
Chris Hartley and Will Duderstadt and I presented for the first time anybody had really done this at the International Builders Show, about the customer experience and the customer journey. And we talked about this and we incorporated this in there. And one of the studies that the salesperson thought that they had this really hot prospect on the line, and that this was gonna be a slam dunk. And the buyer, instead, when they started conversing with the AI, said, you know, not so much. Yeah, we really didn't care for it. Or they felt more open to answer the AI because they knew they were not talking to a human being.
You're so right. And I hate to cover this topic because salespeople do hate me when I say it. The other one is easy to cover because great salespeople are great salespeople. But you are absolutely right, Kimberly. Our direct research has shown that around a third of the time, even great salespeople miscategorize the interest level of a buyer. Apparently, we as consumers are pretty coy. And if we're interested, we can hide it. And if we're not interested, we can hide it. So there is, for every two that a great salesperson qualifies appropriately or classifies dispositions appropriately, there's another one that they missed. And in some cases, that's missed to the downside. Now, again, this is a strange market where everybody's a buyer. It's kind of crazy, as we all know. But again, in a normal
But that's
market,
changing, and it's rapidly changing.
It appears to be, although who knows. I'm certainly not going to try to forecast. I give up on trying to forecast the future. I've been wrong more often than I've been right. But it is amazing how honest, to your point, people will be, one, to a digital assistant, and two, over text. So even to a human over text, you are going to say things that you weren't going to say in person. And you get the reality. And it's a question is, are we asking how I was as a salesperson? No, nobody's asking that. This is not about the salesperson quality. This is about, is this buyer interested in that community or that model or that home? That's,
and as a salesperson, I don't take it personally. I want to know if they're not interested, because next,
exactly, exactly.
You're just don't waste. Right. I don't want to waste my time. If this truly was not the community and the right fit for you and your family, then, hey, if I'd known that, I probably would have referred you down the road somewhere,
I will give you, again, to push the sexy, I'll give you a piece of data that I think is really sexy and that wasn't available in 2018, but is new. And now that we have volumes and volumes of conversations, and we've worked with our builder clients to actually see which ones converted to a sale and which ones didn't over a long period of time. Would you believe that based on the engagement with the digital assistant, if you respond, we can classify you with 100x more likelihood that you're a buyer if you say certain things versus a non-buyer? That is, the digital assistant can tell the salesperson, this person is a buyer and they're 100 times more likely to buy than that person. That's the level of confidence that we can build based on these conversations, which basically tells the salesperson, how much time do you have? Do you want to focus on the 100x people or the 1x people? Just focus on these 800x, because it's going to take you 100 of these to try to get one of these. And that is just, it's crazy. It's honestly a lot more of a disparity than I expected. I was expecting maybe a 10x, but it is 100x. Buyers will elect differently than non-buyers.
This week I did a sales meeting and sales training for a large national builder, and the salespeople are telling me, they're like, most people can't go through my process. I don't have homes. I only have 3 a month that I can sell. So I'm having to just talk to people as soon as I meet them and give them bad news and tell them, this is what you need to do. And so to me, all of this is something where we could have an AI who's not having a bad day, who doesn't have to worry about the emotional toll of things, to share this information so that when people come through the door, their expectations are more in line with the reality of the situation. And to me, yes, I know this market will change, but we'll always need to set those expectations. So how great to have something that can do that for us when people engage with our website, when people engage with us on social media, or wherever they choose to engage with us, and we allow them to take this channel. And I think we should advertise this channel regularly.
You're so absolutely right. And I love your nuance on this, again, this strange environment that we're in today, because as we worked with marketers and heads of sales a couple of years ago, it was all about conversion rate. Help us convert more
Yeah,
effective.
not the issue today.
And today, it's not about conversion rate. That's secondary and certainly there, but it's not the primary. The primary objective is, can you please engage all of the demand and help us, to your point, just answer a few questions and let people know what to expect, and that maybe we're 6 months out, or maybe all we have is join a VIP list. But to do that, I don't want them to have to talk to my human person, because I'd rather use my human on something else. I don't want them answering the same question and getting frustrated and potentially starting to have a bad day after 100 of these conversations. So it really is, there's value in dealing with the volume. That's where there's return on investment. There's dealing with that volume with a machine. And then there's also the delighting the customer's expectation and making them feel like, okay, this brand gives me a way of reaching it. Let me,
Yeah.
It makes me feel important.
People just want to be engaged. They want their questions answered. The frustration that our salespeople, it's coming from the customers too. I mean, I've talked to salespeople recently who said they jumped the fence and tried to come in through the other door because they were in an appointment and they were the only person there. And, this was when they were limiting the number of people in the model. And, people were frustrated because it was a different experience than what they had had previously. And they didn't understand it. And they felt like, that this shouldn't be, that, hey, let me in. But when we can hit a lot of that up front and explain, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. This is how we're doing it. And we welcome you. It can be done in a consistent way.
Absolutely.
And that consistency creates a great customer experience. And humans just aren't that consistent. We can try, but we're not that consistent, as much as we think we are. Let's talk about how another sexy way I think we can use this as part of the customer experience is that automated engagement as you're handing off within after someone has already purchased. So we've talked about it kind of before the purchase and setting that, but I know you've got some people who are using it through the process itself. And to me, I think that can be very sexy, again, as long as there's, a press one and you get a real live person.
Absolutely. And Kimberly, you work so closely with these same clients. So you would know that the biggest challenge everybody is complaining about today is one word: communication. It's not
It always has
just
been.
the
It's not
delays.
new.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. That's not new. But now this sense of, if you would just tell me what's going on, if you would just tell me what's delayed or what the timeline is, I would be, if not okay, at least better than I am today. So one of the most popular experiences in the journey, again, as we map the journey from marketing-led components to sales-led components, now it's the sort of operations and service-led components, where can we have mechanisms where a digital assistant might update you every now and then? Hey, this has just happened, or hey, I'm so sorry, but because of this, we're expecting a delay. You'll get updated in the next week. Very sorry about that.
Imagine sending pictures and, doing the
Absolutely.
weekly updates. Yeah.
Absolutely. And whereas in the past, candidly, most of our integrations were with the CRM because that was what owned the experience up front, top of the funnel. Now the integrations can be with the building, the construction management systems, which has the stages and the cycles and the timeline and what's happening when and delays, or post move-in with the actual property management systems that can allow you to open a service request. Because a very common, again, communication issue, to your point, they've been ever present, is, man, it was easy to get a hold of someone in sales when I was a buyer, but now that I'm a homeowner, I can never figure out who to talk to, whom I can talk, and how to reach them. And you made it easy for me to talk to sales, but you don't make it easy for me to get service. Well, it's because there are a lot of homeowners and teams have not scaled up. Builders have not been able to scale up their service teams. So
Well, and now we're not finishing them before we close them. Not that we ever have, but it's always better when we finish them before we close them, then we have fewer warranty.
I like that expression. I haven't heard that. We don't finish them before we close them.
It's painful. It's very painful. But to that point, we have these systems out there where people can log into a portal and they can see who remembers their logins? They can't remember their passwords. You have people who are not as computer savvy. How awesome would it be for something to proactively reach out and communicate with them in a tool that they're already using so they don't have to remember a password?
That is such a big theme for us, Kimberly. I think there was a time when all of us were building mobile apps. Everybody and their dog was building a mobile app. It doesn't matter if you're a home builder or a software company or a brand, everybody was doing it. But there was a difference between 2007 and say 2017. We have to give credit to the iPhone in 2007. That first decade, we were adding apps to our phones. If you remember early on, we discover new apps and we download it, and discover a new app and we download it. And we were building. The average American and arguably the average user across the world was getting more and more and more apps on their phone. Something switched in the teens and we all started going, I don't want all this crap. I only have this few subset of apps. And in fact, when we upgrade phones, we quickly sort of delete all the old stuff and try to start with a clean, fresh slate. And we've now moved to this world where we're really protective of what apps we add. And in fact, the average American, research continues to show, has fewer and fewer apps on their phone every passing year. We don't
trust them anymore.
We don't. That's true. That's a fair point. We may not trust them. We don't want to download apps. So we then have to judge what is the most convenient channel. To your point, if I'm Delta and I'm talking to a frequent flyer, Delta Airlines, and this person flies 30 times a year, yeah, of course, they'll be willing to download my app and I'll give them enhanced features and so on. But if I'm a retailer and I'm only going to see this customer once or twice and I can't get them to come back, the chance of my convincing them to install an app is really, really low. Yeah. Well, now let's go to the home buying experience. It is tough. It is really tough, even as a home builder, to convince someone to download an app and have credentials, or log into a URL, to your point, and remember where that is and have credentials. It's just too complicated because it's not something I'm doing every day or every week or every month. It's sort of transactional requests. So yeah, that is why we so believe in text messaging. I sincerely believe in text messaging, and still nothing is displacing it yet that I see. We may augment it with like video in text. I'm a big fan of video messages. Sure. But text messaging is wonderful because, like the QR code in our cameras now, text messaging is a native app on every phone. I don't have to download anything. I don't have to have a username or password. It's just one number that I store for the brand. And if I want to get a hold of Home Builder A, I just message Home Builder A on my phone, and the right person in the journey engages, supported by a digital assistant. So that theme of just make it easy, don't make me download, don't make me remember, keep it easy for me is a really, really compelling and real one.
Yeah, I recently had, I think I was telling you last week that I had an experience with a hotel, and the first thing that happened is they gave me the number to text if I wanted something. Then when I got to the hotel room, that I got a text, Ms. Mackey, how is everything? Is there anything else we can get for you? It was fantastic. And, it actually took me a couple of times to realize, wait a minute, this isn't this is AI. It was very personal. It was very nice. It was non-intrusive. And my room wasn't ready because I got there at dark 30 in the morning. So, here's your claim check. So everything was all in one spot. It was fantastic. Mm-hmm. And then when my folio wasn't correct, when they emailed me, after I checked out, I was like, oh, I can call and be on hold, or wait, let me just try this number again. I texted back within 10 minutes. I had a copy of everything that I had asked for. And I even said, thank you for giving me this outlet to be able to do this. I mean, I'm thanking the AI, they were like, you're welcome.
Well, and this is beautiful because I bet you, and I'm not certain in your particular case that I can say this with 100% confidence, but I'm 95% confident that there's still a human concierge who is now assisted by this small army of digital assistants doing the easy stuff. So they don't have to now manually text you, hi, Miss Mackey, is everything okay with the room? Why would I want to type that many times? Let the machine do that for me. But then when Miss Mackey is having a problem with her folio or her bill, that's going to involve a human. The digital assistant isn't just going to magically fix that, but now the human can deal with that in 10 minutes because they're not wasting their time with everybody checking in on non-issues. So I love that example, Kimberly, and it's one that is outside of home building. So it's just one we can all relate to. Wouldn't it be nice if that's how it always was with everything?
I expect that from now on, but I doubt that I'll have it. So I know we only have a few minutes left. I have to because of the sales. I come from sales. No matter what I work in, I always come from sales. But follow up and dead leads, we sort of talked about that. But Chris Hartley did an experiment. And this was back in 2019.
Okay.
It was in December of 2019. And Chris is, for those of you who don't know, is a sales manager extraordinaire in Dallas, Texas, in the Dallas market. And his sales started tanking in 2019. Interest rates started going up. It was the holidays. We had like a whole bunch of stuff going on, and this is all pre-COVID. And so sales started going down. So he had used the chatbot to reach out to the dead leads file. These were the Ds. These were the people that we had seen, but they were nowhere near ready. They couldn't get qualified. They had a home to sell. They had issues. And he reached out to the dead leads, and I forget how many they actually sent out to, but it was 1,100, 800 to 1,100, somewhere in that, right around 1,000. They sold 5 homes. I forget how many appointments they scheduled, but there were quite a few that re-engaged with them simply because they had their chatbot reach out and say, where are you in your goal of owning a new home, or to some semblance thereof. And I just thought that was the coolest thing ever, that these are people, even our OSCs have given up on them. The salespeople gave up on them long ago. I mean, let's be honest, but the OSCs are like, all right, they're dead. I can't beat this horse anymore. And now we have the chatbot reach out, and all of a sudden 5 homes.
I had totally forgotten, honestly, sincerely, about that until you just mentioned it. And when you mentioned Chris Hartley, I was like, oh no, which story is this going to be?
It could be a whole bunch.
There are lots of great stories with Chris Hartley, but that one is a really, really compelling one, and one where, again, the ROI there is it's not worth a human team member to follow up with whatever hundreds. I honestly don't remember the count, but I do think it was very substantial. Do I really want to call these folks or manually reach out to them? The number of times it would take when a machine can just do it so cost effectively and just clean it out for me, and basically respectfully let them opt out. Let them say, I'm not interested. Great. We won't keep bothering you. We won't keep spamming you. We won't keep calling you. We respect you. But hey, if you raise your hand, then that's fantastic. We'll now engage you right away. So I love that you bring this up, and thank you for reminding me of it. It really was one of the coolest, sexiest experiences that a chatbot, I think, has helped home building.
Yeah, I mean, there's just the options are, I think we think of them as, oh, well, click here if you want to chat with us on the website. The point here is that there's just so many more opportunities of things that you can do with them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, and then lastly, CRM. I love CRM, but I love good CRMs. I want a predictive CRM. I've gotten a little spoiled. So anybody on here from any of our home builder CRMs, get a pipeline, because you need a pipeline. Pipelines are very important. But chatbots can help move people through that sales pipeline. It's kind of like we're just watching them through the journey.
Absolutely. So the CRM and the digital assistant sort of go hand in hand. The CRM is really the system of record and the single source of the truth. That's where you track everything. And there's sort of a two-way synergy between, sorry to use such a buzzword with synergy, but there sincerely is a two-way synergy where all of the conversations that are happening, whether it's a salesperson doing it over a platform, or a digital assistant talking to a customer, or a customer asking a question, all of that can now be stored in the CRM. So it's centrally available, and you can find it and remember what you said and what your colleague said a month ago. It can all be stored there. But likewise, to your point, you need to have a funnel and a process and a journey that's mapped in the CRM. That's what the CRM is for. And the CRM can actually trigger experiences automatically. So the CRM can say, this person just took this action. Let's go offer them that, or let's go remind them that when they came in 2 weeks ago, we hadn't heard back, and ask them if they're still interested. And if they say, yes, we bought a home somewhere, let's ask them where. Why did they buy from a competitor? Why was builder B more appealing to you? I want that competitive intel. We're not going to waste our human team's time doing that. And candidly, the customer may not even tell them that, but they're telling that assistant. So I love that interplay between sort of, CRM-led journeys and the customer experience on this side. So thank you for bringing that up. I completely concur, completely agree.
It allows us to be more personal. The canned letters that go out, that you plan out six to 16 of these letters that are going to drip out. You now can program all of this. And so it becomes more personal to that buyer and their experience. And, if they've already picked out a home site, you're a custom builder and they picked out a home site somewhere, or they have land, that's a completely different journey. And they have different questions than somebody they want to build, but they haven't figured out where they want to build yet. That's a whole different conversation. We can now actually have the conversation.
And that is the key point. It's not to your point, instead of sending out a letter or a canned email or just this one-way thing, we can actually have a conversation. So at every point, we can have a conversation, find out why or why not, find out how. We can actually, the trigger now becomes not just this one-way lob of a random message, but a full conversation with our customer, which is so critical to allow them to have.
And then I know we're over time, so I very quickly cut to the chase, because I'm surprised the chat hasn't blown up with this question. Is this just so expensive that the average builder can't afford it? So what's the ROI, and how do they go about affording this?
This is really, really simple. And I always say this, the cost is really only a function of ROI. If you have no volume of anything, you're not going to get ROI. You don't need a digital assistant. If you've got 5 people coming to your website, or 10 people trying to reach your salespeople, or very small volumes, I'll be very candid, you could probably just do it manually because your volumes aren't there. But as soon as you have volumes, very sincerely, it's not a cost question, it's an ROI question. It's, how can I save costs by getting automation here? How can you provide me something that makes it so I don't have to scale a team that I can't? I only have 4 of these great people. I can't. So it really is a function of ROI. But to get down to brass tacks, because how these experiences vary, they're as simplistic as hundreds of dollars a month for a very basic, dumb digital assistant that can only basically answer A or B and then route to a human, to probably a few single thousands of dollars a month, depending on the number of journey points that you're touching the customer, the number of digital assistants, and the volume. Now, obviously, if you're a very large top 10, top 20 national builder with we support almost half of the top 20 national builders now. These are enormous volumes of conversations. I mean, the number of conversations and visitors that we're seeing is really, really high. So obviously it scales from there, because the systems and sophistication to go with those sorts of journeys are pretty meaningful. But candidly, I'm a business person. I would only spend money if there's ROI. And if I'm getting ROI, I'll spend it all day long. So ROI really is the question here. And very sincerely, we have found the ROI to be incredibly compelling when considering optimizing the top level KPI, whether it's a conversion or deflection. Some clients say, I want to deflect the questions, but conversion or deflection. The second is, how much human cost am I saving because I don't have to waste my human time to do something? And then the third is, am I delighting my client, and is there some intangible value to their brand affinity and their referrals and their promotion of my brand because they love working with me? And when you take that ROI into perspective, it's almost never a difficult conversation.
Interesting. Very interesting. Guys, I know you have questions. I'm going to send out this video. It will be live on my YouTube channel. We'll have it all over social, and of course with Bassam's contact information. So please, reach out, learn more about this, go to their website and just take some of the experiences that they have right there on the website. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And the key here is this isn't something that's happening 10 years from now. It's something that's happening right now. And as home builders, we have to embrace it. So, but Sam, thank you so much for simplifying this. Oh, this was fantastic. So thank you, Heidi, for that.
Thanks, Heidi. It's good to see you.
To all of you for spending time with us today. Have a wonderful rest of your week. And we look forward to seeing you back in May on May 10th with Leah Turner. So thanks again, Bassam. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.